Hey guys, John and Jamie from True Crimecast here. If you're anything like us, you've probably had those conversations where you're like, man, someone should be recording this.
Right? And now you can do that with Zen AI, the home of vibecasting. A vibecast is all about putting the conversation first and turning it into something worth sharing.
Whether you're reacting live to a game or TV show, Zen AI makes it incredibly easy to create your own broadcast.
And you don't need a fancy setup either. Your phone is your studio. Just hit record, start talking. You can get professional level sound right from your phone.
Then Zen AI's AI producer takes over from there. It handles the cleanup, helps with editing, and even creates share-ready clips. And the cool part is you can make changes simply by chatting with it in plain English.
Zen AI is currently an invite-only beta, so join the wait list today.
Head to zen.ai to sign up.
That's zen.ai. Start vibecasting this summer.
Summer's supposed to be the easy season. So why are so many people quietly Googling a therapist between summer Fridays? Because more daylight doesn't fix the hard stuff. Sometimes it just turns the volume up. Grow does therapy differently. Therapy is not only for when you're in crisis. Grow Therapy is here for all the moments when you decide you want more. More support, more clarity, more tools. Mental health isn't a destination you reach. It's something you build, and Grow makes that easier. Grow connects you with thousands of high-quality licensed therapists across the U.S., offering both virtual and in-person sessions, nights and weekends. You can search by what matters, like insurance, specialty, identity, or availability, and get started in as little as 2 days. There are no subscriptions, no long-term commitments. You just pay per session. Grow helps you find therapy on your time. The therapist you want takes your insurance on Grow. Grow accepts over 125 insurance plans. Sessions average $21 with insurance, and some pay as little as $0 depending on their plan. Visit growtherapy.com/booknow today to get started. That's growtherapy.com/booknow. growtherapy.com/booknow. Availability and coverage vary by state and insurance plan.
Hey, True Crimecast fans, Jamie and John here. For the next couple of weeks, we're going to give you a special presentation of our show, Paradigm.
Paradigm is an 8-episode series where we take a deep dive into one case. If you've been around for a while, you'll know that that is very different, as we normally will do an episode per case, but not this one.
We're currently working on season 2 of Paradigm, so we thought it'd be a great idea to bring season 1 back up. So on the True Crimecast feed over the next couple of weeks, you're going to get the entire first season of Paradigm. Now, that whole season is available over on the Paradigm feed. So you can go over there and subscribe and listen to it all now, or wait till it comes out here.
If you do go over there, we would encourage you to go ahead and hit subscribe so that when our new season comes out, you'll be immediately notified.
We're in the depth of that investigation, and it's going to be, we think, a really great story being told with hopefully some good outcomes. So make sure you subscribe over there. The guys will be back in a couple weeks for your regularly scheduled programming of True Crimecast.
Guys, we love you, and we'll see you next crime.
The American justice system is built on the idea of blind justice, an impartial look at a situation based on the facts as interpreted by a jury of our peers. In theory, there are very few problems with this system. But much like we do in most areas of our lives, humans tend to create problems where there need not be any. Former President Theodore Roosevelt once said, "Justice consists not in being neutral between right and wrong, but finding out the right and upholding it, wherever found, against the wrong." We discussed earlier this season the craze around the Satanic Panic, the many court cases it influenced, and how it may have had an impact on the proceedings for the 6 charged with killing the Lillywhite family. Today, we're going to take a closer look at their early legal proceedings, their plea deal, and the court's decision to issue life sentences to all 6. Were these decisions made to find balance in the midst of chaos, or in the pursuit of holding up what was right? This is Paradigm.
I'm going to be honest. We have looked at this case from every angle and consumed every piece of available information. And we've gone back and forth on what we think personally about the plea deals, the sentences handed out, the various appeals, and where things currently stand with the 6 that are still in prison for this crime. So, we have decided to present the facts as unbiased as possible to allow you to make your own determination about what, if anything, could be done to make the punishment more accurately fit the culpability of those involved in the murder. So, let's get started with the arrest. The 6 were re-entering America when their vehicle was flagged by the BOLO that had been issued for the van. You could go out and find stories about how the computer at the border check was down all day and only came back on moments before the van came along. There was debate about this amongst those involved, and based on our research, the details of the border office are not pertinent to this case. But what was found in the van on the 6 individuals inside were pertinent. Officers searched the van and found a photo album belonging to the Lily Lids. The defendants were taken to jail in Douglas, Arizona. At the time of their arrest, several of the defendants had in their possession personal items belonging to the victims. In the press and in early proceedings, District Attorney Berkeley Bell would claim that these possessions were trophies that the killers took, which is really a common thing for serial killers to do. Bell hammered home that these were souvenirs from their big adventure of murdering a family. The items in possession of the 6 were a Hello Kitty locket, Peter Lillylid's social security card and pictures, and also a set of keys. In their defense, each member of the 6 denied the idea that these items were trophies, and they presented practical reasons for being in the possession of these items. This is what Crystal Sergel had to say about having the extra set of keys in the van.
The van had a messed up battery. Every time it was turned off, we had to use jumper cables to get it going again. Something that was difficult considering that if one needed to use the bathroom, then all 6 had to go in. Joe told me to carry the extra set of keys so we could leave the van running and still lock the doors, or in case we needed them. I'd forgotten they were in my pocket when the Border Patrol officers were searching me. It seemed inconsequential at the time.
The van had a messed up battery. Karen Hale had a similar story. She had a Hello Kitty locket that she claimed was her way of remembering Tabitha, not in a morbid serial killer kind of way, but almost as a way to honor her, as Hal contends that she was a witness to the murders instead of a participant.
Jason Bryant had his own set of problems, a detail that we glossed over a bit in the first episode. When the 6 were first searched, a strip search was part of the procedure. When Bryant was asked to squat and cough as a part of this strip search, which is apparently a common part of that process, he was unable to squat due to a gunshot wound in his leg. At first, Bryant claimed that he was shot by Vidar Lillylid, and then he shot back at him in self-defense. At some point, he told authorities that he was shot in the leg by Joseph Reisner. According to others in the van, Bryant shot himself to make it look like he had been shot by the Lillylids and was acting in self-defense. He allegedly also had an interesting run-in with a prisoner in jail in Arizona. A memorandum of the incident was recorded in the legal proceedings. This is what it says about Bryant's encounter with another juvenile inmate.
After Bryant was booked, he met another juvenile inmate named Richard Arvizo in the recreation room. Arvizo asked Bryant what he was there for, and Bryant told him Bryant had killed some people in Tennessee. When Arvizo asked about bandages on Bryant, where he told him he had got shot there, that someone was trying to rob him and was shooting at him, Bryant told that the man was shooting at him, and Bryant was shooting back at the man, and Bryant said he shot the man in the eye. Arvizo asked which eye, and Bryant said the right eye. Bryant said he just shot the man in the eye, and the man fell to the ground moaning and squirming around, and Bryant said he had 10 shoot the man some more until he stopped. Bryant showed Arvizo how he shot the man. Bryant didn't say he shot anyone else. Arvizo asked why he had done it, and Bryant told him that he was in a bad situation, that he was trying to run away, and that he wanted the man's van. Bryant said that after they killed the people, they took the van to Arizona. Arvizo asked how they got caught, and Bryant said they got caught on the Mexican border. He said they went to Mexico, and on the way out, the border officials ran the plates and found the van was stolen. Arvizo asked, where he met the victims. And Bryant told him at a rest stop off some highway that they had got up into the hills of Tennessee, and that was where it all occurred. Arvizo says he didn't believe what Bryant was telling him, and so asked Bryant some more questions. The next day, Arvizo had not talked to any state agents or officers about these conversations. Arvizo asked again about Bryant's wounds, and Bryant told him that Bryant had shot himself to make it look like the people were trying to rob him. Arvizo asked Bryant what it felt like to kill someone, and Bryant told him it gives you a rush and makes you feel powerful. Gives you power.
When the six got back to Tennessee, they all got attorneys and started working on their own defense. With Jason Bryant being 14 years old and Karen Hale being 17, they were both technically juveniles and would not be eligible for the death penalty. Crystal Sturgill barely knew the people in the group, and everyone agreed that she did not participate in the murder. Bryant claimed that Dean Mullins and Joe Reisner were the shooters. However, everyone else involved blamed Bryant, and even to this day, the stories of everybody do not match. And due to this, Berkeley Bell claimed to believe, and technically still does believe, that each of the six had a role in the actual shooting. He claimed that this was some sort of ritual or an initiation to a satanic cult. It turns out that Berkeley Bell was very motivated to get justice for the Lily Lids. This is not due to a personal connection to the family, not just to fulfill the duty as a district attorney, but he had an experience that made him determined to seek the maximum punishment for all involved. Ashley Sharp of CBS 13 Sacramento, formerly of WJHL of Johnson City, Tennessee, had this to say about Bell's experience.
Talking to him was really interesting because I remember, when I did my interview with him, he said that, and I feel like this is not that common of a prosecutor, but he went to the hospital. He went to the hospital after these crimes, and he walked in and he sees Peter, the 2-year-old who had survived, and his aunt was there and was holding him. And he said that Peter at that point just looked at this man, Berkeley Bell, a prosecutor, somebody he's never met, and holds out his arms for him to pick him up and hold him. And Berkeley said, when we interviewed him, that was just such an incredible emotional moment for him where it really clicked. As a prosecutor, he was like, we have to get this little boy justice for his family. His 6-year-old sister had died at the hospital. His parents had been brutally killed and left to die in a ditch, and he survived. So I think that was one of the stories that stuck out to me. When we talked to the DA, even all those years later, he was still emotional, reflecting on, little Peter holding out his arms, wanting to be consoled, right? And wanting to be held. I just think that is, I think that is probably why he so relentlessly pursued this prosecution and getting all of the 6, all of them the same sentence. There was a lot of talk of, well, who actually pulled the trigger? Did they all do it? Who didn't? Who has the least amount of responsibility? But I think for him, it came down to, there's going to be none of that. They were all there. Whatever role you played, it doesn't really make a difference at the end of the day. And I think that from the moment that Peter held out his arms to Berkeley Bell, nothing was going to change his mind on that.
All 6 individuals would be charged with 3 counts of first-degree murder, 1 count of attempted murder, and 2 counts of especially aggravated kidnapping, 2 counts of regular kidnapping, and 1 count of theft of property valued between $1,000 and $10,000, which was the van. The aggregating factors that were added to the murder and attempted murder counts read as follows. The murder was committed for the purpose of avoiding, interfering with, or preventing arrest or prosecution. The defendants committed mass murder, and this is listed for Tabitha's murder only since she saw her parents shot in front of her. The murder was especially heinous, atrocious, or cruel. For the attempted murder charge, these were the aggravating factors. The victim of the offense was particularly vulnerable because of age. The victim was treated with exceptional cruelty during the commission of the offense, and a firearm was used during the commission of the offense. Berkeley Bell made it clear from the beginning that he would be seeking the death penalty for all 4 adults being tried. His narrative, as discussed before, was that the group had a party at the Kali Hotel in Pikeville where they worshiped Satan and planned a natural-born killers-inspired killing spree across the country. They killed the Lily-Lids ritualistically, shooting them in the chest in a pentagram pattern after they were all on the ground and then stacking their bodies in the shape of an upside-down cross. He emphasized the trophies that they took and their inability to tell a consistent story from one individual to the next. Many of the 6 were assigned public defenders. Natasha Cornett was represented by Eric C. Kahn, who, as we noted in our first episode of this season, has a criminal history that would make Al Capone proud. He advised Natasha to act like she was a Satan worshiper to get an insanity plea. Shortly after this, he was fired, but not before the damage was already done. Karen Howe had a rookie attorney named David Leonard who was in way over his head. This was his very first murder trial, and he made a comment to the judge during pre-trial hearings that law school does not prepare anybody for trials like this. Dean Mullins' family could afford representation, paying Pikeville criminal attorney Steve Owens $30,000 up front to represent Dean. Eventually, Owens would petition to be appointed by the state so he could be paid as a public defender for the remainder of the case moving forward. And most of the 6 claimed promises were made that were never kept. Dean, in fact, claimed that he was promised immunity from the death penalty if he could lead officials to the weapons and show them that he was not the shooter. He believes he did both of those things, but if that promise happened, it was certainly not upheld.
But ultimately, the whole group was offered what Bell called a package plea offer, where the state would not seek the death penalty against the 4 adult co-defendants if Hal and all her co-defendants agreed to enter guilty pleas to their offenses. The plea offer provided for concurrent sentences of 25 years for each conviction of especially aggravated kidnapping, 12 years for each aggravated kidnapping conviction, and 4 years for the theft conviction. The trial court would determine the sentences for the felony murder and attempted first-degree murder convictions. All 6 defendants claimed that they were told that they would be sentenced based on their individual culpability in the murders, and it would not be a blanket sentencing for everyone. To clarify, this was an all-or-nothing deal, so if all 6 signed it, they would all avoid the death penalty, but even if one person in the group chose not to, then the other 4 adult defendants could receive capital punishment, either by the electric chair or by lethal injection. The group had 72 hours to make this decision. They were offered the plea deal on Wednesday, February the 18th of 1998, and expected to make their decision by the end of the day on Friday. In future appeals, many of the 6 would claim that this type of deal was impermissible, that they deserved separate sentencing trials. Although Judge James Beckner claimed that it would simply bankrupt the court to host 6 separate trials and the logistics would be impossible. They also claimed that they were not all very well represented. Karen Hell states that she was told by her attorney that, quote, life sentences change all the time, end quote, and that she did not grasp that her sentence might not change. She said that she did not understand the difference between consecutive and concurrent sentences. Karen also claimed that the prison nurse had taken her off her Xanax shortly before the plea deal was offered, and that she was being held in isolation. She claimed that she was in a horrible state mentally when she had to make the decision about the offer. In addition, Karen's IQ was measured at 78, which is borderline low functioning. Crystal presented the strongest case for a separate trial. One of the only details that all 6 agreed upon was that Crystal did not actively participate in anything. She believed her culpability to be less and thought that it should show up in a separate hearing. However, despite many objections from the 6, the plea deal and its expiration date were approaching quickly. Many of the 6 claimed that the message received from those around there was simply, "Are you really going to hold out and let your friends die because of you?" Thus, everyone gave in and signed before the deadline, Instead of having a jury, the sentence was carried out by Judge Beckner, and all 6 had their sentencing hearing at the same time.
At this sentencing hearing, Karen Howell, Natasha Cornett, Joseph Reisner, and Jason Bryant testified on their own behalves. Dean Mullins and Crystal Sturgill decided not to. A forensic pathologist named Dr. Cleveland Blake testified about the victim's wounds and the likely timeline of the series of events that took place during the murder. Tests showed that Jason Bryant was covered in gunshot residue, and the court felt like he was at least one of the shooters. Although Bryant put most of the blame on Reisner, claiming Reisner asked him to take the blame since he was a juvenile and could not be eligible for the death penalty. However, Reisner had no gunshot residue anywhere on any of his clothes. Dean Mullins had minimal amounts of gunshot residue on his sweater. Crystal Sturgill and Natasha Cornett had some on their pants. Some court documents suggest that Karen Howell had gunshot residue all over, but a copy of the test results we obtained indicate that Karen had no gunshot residue on her at all. Keep in mind that these tests were done well after the fact, and they were only able to test their clothes, not their hands or their bodies. Although all the testimony was taking place in the same courtroom, the judge ruled on each individual separately. This is what Judge Beckner had to say about each one of the Pikeville 6.
In sentencing Karen Howell, the mitigating evidence is overcome by and rebutted by the credible facts of the case that for a long time before this occurred, you had been doing drugs and participating in things of an occult nature, and the occult mark continued on this case throughout the events that transpired. Its signature is throughout this case. You participated in everything in Kentucky. You helped steal guns and money. You helped initiate the plans for this trip with Miss Cornett. You were at the picnic table at the rest area with the Little Lids when they were kidnapped. When they were crying, you were outside the van watching the Little Lids be murdered. You did nothing to stop when a weapon was available. You deliberately and knowingly participated in every aspect of the killings and the things that led up to them, including the getaway and the cover-up. In the sentencing of Natasha Cornett, not only did the statutory aggravating circumstances outweigh those, but those mitigating circumstances are, in fact, rebutted by the facts of this case. History of some violent behavior, the fact that you had killing on your mind when you left Kentucky, not necessarily a ringleader, but the evidence shows that you were the instigator and orchestrator of the trip and the things that led to the death of the Little Lids. In the sentencing of Jason Bryant, I find that you were aggressively urging others on to do things at that time, that you personally carried one of the guns, that, in fact, you were a shooter. I don't know who all were the shooters. I think there was more than one. I've seen no real remorse or emotion displayed by you. I find the evidence shows you were aggressive in the killings, that you helped use a gun to kidnap the Little Lids in the first place. You had gunshot residue all over you. You were in the van for 2 days with Little Lid property all around you and under your feet, including a baby seat and baby's toys. You bragged about the crimes in jail in Arizona, and you have a history of drug abuse and a callous attitude. In the sentencing of Dean Mullins, you had positive gunshot residue on your sweater. You participated in all of the events in Kentucky. You left the rest area with the Little Lids in Mr. Reisner's automobile. You didn't have to do that. It was a deliberate and knowing act following that van. And there's really no proof of it, but the proof is that Delphina and Tabitha were crying at the picnic table before they got in the van. And it seems to me that conversations with them about that it's logical to assume beyond a reasonable doubt that you had to know something was wrong. You participated in the getaway and cover-up. You were in the van for 2 days with Little Lid property, a baby seat under your feet, children's toys. You had many chances to get away, to do something about what was going on, to report that a child had been murdered and a baby left for dead. You did nothing. You were a participant in it by your actions and your non-actions. And I find, therefore, that these sentences to be, in each of the 3 counts of first-degree murder, life without the possibility of parole. In the sentencing of Joseph Reisner, it was your car, driven by you, that made the trip. You held a gun on the Little Lids at the picnic table. You got the ball rolling in the kidnapping. You rode in the van with the Little Lids begging and crying and singing and with a gun in your hand and Peter in the baby seat. You deliberately ran over the Little Lids. You drove the getaway van. You were a leader, not the leader, but a leader. You had the presence of mind to take the tag from your car, your papers, and clothes at the scene. And in the sentencing of Crystal Mullins, there are some mitigating circumstances in your case, and perhaps more than for some other defendants. I find that you had no significant history of prior criminal activity. You were an accomplice in a murder committed by another person, and your participation was relatively minor. I agree with everybody that no participation in these events can be described as minor. The mitigating circumstances are rebutted. There was a lot of talk in Kentucky about death and killing before you set out from Kentucky. You were present when everything was happening in Kentucky. The rituals, the burglarizing, the stealing, getting the guns, preparing. You knowingly went in the car following the van from the rest area to that place. Tabitha and Delphina were crying even before they left the picnic table. Just like I told Mr. Mullins, you may not have pulled the trigger, you may have been horrified by this, but everything that you did showed that you adopted this and gave it your name. You were certainly a willing participant in the getaway and the cover-up. You had many chances to get away, many chances to report to the authorities. You left a baby for dead at the scene of the crime.
When the sentence came down from Judge Beckner, the community rejoiced, but the defendants and their families were in utter disbelief. Each defendant was sentenced to 25 years for the attempted murder of Peter Lillylid and life sentences without the possibility of parole for each of the 3 first-degree murder convictions. The trial court ordered that all 4 sentences be served consecutively, finding each defendant to be a dangerous offender having little regard to human life. Concurrent sentences would allow the defendants to count each year behind bars towards every count. Consecutive sentences mean that you add up all the sentences together. This effectively meant that all 6 defendants would live out the rest of their lives in prison with no possibility of parole.
In the 25-plus years since their sentencing hearing, all 6 defendants have filed a number of appeals based on a variety of factors. They've had no luck up to this point at having anything about their sentences changed. Many of them have found advocates in the community that are fighting hard for their release. In particular, there are pending appeals based on new legislation concerning fingerprints and a Supreme Court ruling that it is unconstitutional to give minors life sentences without the possibility of parole. But for every advocate you find, you'll also find many individuals willing to fight to keep them behind bars. In our next episode, we'll dig deep into the appeals from all the defendants, the current status of litigation, and have breaking news about appeals that were just filed. We will discuss opinions supporting all outcomes, and then it will be up to you to decide whether you would agree with some or all of the defendants being released, or if you would like to see them all in prison for the rest of their natural lives. While your individual opinion may not sway any final decisions, someone's opinion will, and we'll be there when it happens. From B&B Creative, this is Paradigm.